Paul Cayard, and his sailing resume is very long.
It's nice to be here. I see a lot of friendly sailor faces here. And just to start off, I want to say how much I respect Dave Ullman. I've known Dave for a long time. So I thought about talking a little bit about the recent events. You know, the America's Cup is obviously a recent event that we're all happy is in the recent past. And we're looking forward to what's going to happen in the future with that. So the America's Cup. Well, you know, we just experienced one of those difficult ones, I think. There are some people who think that is the thread of the America's Cup, the entrepreneurial, billionaire, war, all about the money, and just a few very elite, very exclusive event, 2 boats. But there are some of us who believe that an event like Valencia in 2007 is a better pinnacle event for our sport, and to showcase that sailing really is a sport, not whatever that last thing was. And so, you know, what that demonstrated, though, was the Achilles heel of the America's Cup. Unfortunately, our pinnacle event in our sport is predicated on a document that is very hard to modify and allows for the winner of the event to control, in a large part, the rules for the next event. And if that person, you know, behaves in a certain way, you can fall out of the grace of, let's say, mutual consent and a protocol and a lot of agreement, and therefore multiple challengers and all the things we've gotten to know and love about the America's Cup in the last 25 years. And so they had their race, and the interesting thing about it was, and I'm fairly friendly with Russell, so I got a lot of the insight there. And he was amongst the people saying that if it's under 10 knots, the Alinghi boat's going to be much faster, and if it's over 10 knots, the trimaran should be fast, and that the catamaran would be faster all the time downwind. And people would ask me, what do I think? And I said, you know, I hear all that, but what we don't know, I agree with the trends. Catamaran's going to be faster in light air, and the trimaran has more stability, so it should be better in heavy air. I agree with the trend, but we don't really know if there's any overlap in their performance. And I think that's what really bore itself out was, yes, if it was light, it was a closer battle, and if it had blown 15, you would have, you know, the Oracle would have been really launched, as the second race was a little windier. So the fact of the matter was, really, there was no overlap in their performance. The trimaran was always faster. One big piece of that was making the hard wing. The hard wing generates a lot more power for its surface area, and that boat needed power for the light air venue that Alinghi had picked. And you know, that's an incredible piece of technology, 186 feet high. I got to see it up close while I was in their shed before they stepped it before the first race, and it's really quite a cool piece of equipment, no doubt. One interesting technological thing I'll dabble in is just to give you an idea of what they can do with that thing. That sail was in 9 horizontal elements. And when you tack a multi-hull, well, when you sail a multi-hull, one of the key things is you want to fly, you want only one of the hulls to be in the water. So if it's a trimaran, you want to try to fly the main hull and the windward pontoon. And if you're in a catamaran, you'd like to fly the windward pontoon, the windward hull, so that you reduce the drag significantly. And as a boat, there's something called Reynolds numbers. So the force, the power that a foil exerts has a lot to do with the speed of the fluid going across it. So, you know, when they're up to speed, a lot of times the catamaran will start out kind of slow, dragging its hull, and as it builds speed, it'll build power, and it'll then start to heel more and more and more, and it actually bears off a little bit because it starts sailing a wider true wind angle as the apparent wind angle goes forward. So, but that takes a while, and you're dragging along, and that's why they don't maneuver much, because it costs a lot to maneuver these things. Well, with this boat, what they could do is they could vary the camber over the height of the sail plan. So when they tacked, they built a lot of depth. They would make the top 2 sections extremely deep, like maybe 40 don't know if 40% is the right word, but Russ told me, I mean, it was extremely deep in the top. So they're creating a lot of healing moments because they're creating a lot of depth at the very height of the arm, right, the top of the mast, which is going to tip the boat over. So that flies the hull much sooner than a uniform sail that doesn't have that ability to control the sail. And then as the boat would accelerate, they would slide that depth down the sail plan. This thing was all, it had a PLC, it was all electronically controlled. So they would slide the depth down the sail plan, flattening out the top, because now they don't want to heel any more than that, and they're picking up more and more speed, so they're getting power off the speed, and they're just flattening the whole shape and moving the depth of the sail down. So that was a very cool technology that they could control that the soft sail doesn't have the luxury of controlling. So, you know, there's just a lot of details here. You see they had curved foils. The lingy foils were just straight down like dagger boards. So the significance of the curved foil is that when this thing is down, it's arced inward, so the leeward hull is being lifted like a hydrofoil. So they're creating more stability because the foil, instead of going down like this, it's arced in, and it's got a certain amount of angle of attack to it. So when they're moving along, not only are they preventing the bow from digging in, which is a problem with multi-hulls, but they're actually lifting the leeward bow and lifting the whole leeward hull, so creating more riding moment. Lingy didn't have the time or couldn't figure out how to develop curved foils, and that's another big advantage that Oracle had. So anyway, they did a fantastic job, and Russell Coots for sure is a mastermind of planning all that stuff out, and he showed it again, you know, just in case we weren't sure after he won the Cup 3 times. Right, and it was strange to me. It was so obvious to me that something needed to be done. You know, I've talked about this thing called independent management of the event and the conflict of interest that's inherent in the America's Cup, where just because you win the event shouldn't mean that you are organizing the competition, right? I mean, we don't have tennis tournaments that are organized by Pete Sampras on a court that's in his backyard, you know, with him always with his back to the sun, you know, not changing sides or something like that. I mean, that's what it's like. So no other sporting event has one of the competitors organizing the event. There is none. There's only one in sailing. So I think we just gotta, it's so obvious that we've got to get away from that. And it was odd to me that neither Larry or Ernesto had the ball. It was, to me, it's like, if I'm a really wealthy guy like that, and Ernesto had won the Cup twice previously, so he put his stamp on the sport. Larry's a ultra-rich and very successful software developer, so he won his race. Well, is it more important to win the next America's Cup, or is it more for both those, or is it more important to go down in history as the guy who had the courage to give up the ball for the betterment of the whole sport? Because I really believe that we could get the top of this thing sorted out, to trickle down through everything, through ISAF, through national organization. A lot of things would go better if we made a commercially viable event at the very top of our sport. And so I think Larry gets it, and he sounds like willing to give up the ball. And you know, I think he could be looked back on 50 years from now in a much better light than Ernesto. And I think Ernesto missed his opportunity.
Because our sport, we're all passionate about our sport. Paul gets to live our passion, and I hope everything goes smooth and goes forward. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. On our website at Ullman Sails, in the seminar series, there is a link to sign up for Paul's blog. I get it all the time when I'm traveling too, and it's fun to watch. We're in negotiation with Paul and his group to add them to the Ullman Inshore series. No, I'm just kidding.